Hello, and you're very welcome back to the Justice for Aaron Brady campaign. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Stephen Kerr from the Irish Inquiry, who over the last 10 days, he actually released a video of the very first meeting we had in relation to the Justice for Aaron campaign, just down the road from our home here. Now, Stephen recorded the presentation that night that I gave a PowerPoint presentation, and when we went to look at it again, Stephen took the presentation and the slides and he created, I'm not sure how long the video was, I think it was just over an hour, and he edited it very well and he released it on his own channel, the Irish Inquiry. So thank you to Stephen for that. But on the back of that, there was a question, comment, a statement sent in from this gentleman here, Mr. Big Stones. And very, very interesting question. There's it there in its entirety. And Mr. Big Stones, as you can see, this is his profile. There's just no content whatsoever. But Mr. Big Stones has asked a number of questions over the course of this last possibly 18 months, 2 years. And we've always thought we've answered them as best we could, but obviously Mr. Stones is not satisfied with our replies. So what I'd like to do is we're actually going to run through this statement from Mr. Big Stones here. Now this, as I say, this message from Mr. Big Stones is under the video released by the Irish Inquiry. So we're going to break it down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But actually today all we're going to look at is that very first part there, number 1. And the question is, you can see it circled there, he was not framed, he done it. Case was weak. Why his girlfriend in Australia was never cross-examined, I don't know. She lied and changed her story, so did Aaron. Very, very important point, Mr. Big Stones. And actually, a very detailed part of the case that was manipulated and completely curated by the Irish authorities. So, we're going to delve down into this just one point, and over the course of the next few weeks, all the other relevant points that's been raised by Mr. Big Stones, we will respond to them. And we sincerely hope that this time when we respond, that we are fully answering your questions, Mr. Big Stones. So we'll start with the whole scenario surrounding Aaron's then girlfriend and how a couple of text messages between Aaron and his girlfriend and Aaron telling lies, how that was all manipulated to create a false narrative. And when we go into the details of it and the facts of it, we'll show the absurdity of the accusations and the false narrative. But more importantly, once again, we will show the impossibility of details, times, distances travelled, and relative vital areas on the map, so to speak. So let's have a look at the area of importance. So in and around Aaron's girlfriend at that time, we're looking at this here. It's immediately after the alleged story from the burn site. So you can see the burn site obviously at the top of the picture, and you can see the little red and green house. That's where the girlfriend's house was. So you can see from all the relative Google Map lanes there, it takes about 24 minutes or so, they're saying, to the distance. So I'm not sure in kilometres, it's 13 and a half miles between the burn site and the girlfriend's house. So let's have a look at the facts. So one thing that is a fact, and we do know, that Aaron arrived at his girlfriend's house around 11 p.m. That's a fact, because as you'll see, and is very, very important, there's 7 other people in the house. Okay, and that's all been verified that Aaron came around 11 o'clock, was his normal cheeky chappy self. But we'll cover that when we come to it. So let's have a look at the evidence. Let's have a look at what was presented to the court to gain a false conviction against our son Aaron. So the burn site obviously was very, very important, because there was a blue car burnt out at this burn site down near Newtown Hamilton. And obviously we've always said it was a silver car involved in the murder robbery, as eyewitnesses had told us. Notwithstanding that, let's follow the narrative and the story created by the state. So at the burn site there, the first sighting is just after 10 o'clock. That's directly opposite the burn site, north of the CCTV footage. Okay, now at the CCTV footage, there's two vehicles past the contaminant school. That's where the CCTV footage is, that arrow. And that's at 10:04 and 10:06. And we allow a couple of minutes for the car to travel from the CCTV footage to the burn site. Okay, we'll allow that because there has to be continuity. There can be nothing else, only continuity for it to carry any weight. But we'll see. So we're talking 10 past 10, 10:10 p.m. possibly, when one vehicle passed the farmer quite close to the burn site. Now the farmer said the vehicle went from left to right and was away for a half an hour. Now Bobby Ogle did interview the farmer later on, several months later, and it was changed to 20 minutes. So we have to give you all the facts. But the morning after the farmer was questioned, he said it was over half an hour. So we now have a vehicle passing the farmer from left to right at 10 past 10. Let's split the difference, and we'd say 25 minutes the vehicle comes back down. So that now leaves us at 25 minutes to, or 22:11. So we're at 10:35, 10:40 p.m. So from that point when the car returns from right to left, if there was any substance to the story created by Garda Síochána, Aaron would have had to travel that 13.5 miles, veer off one of those routes, go get showered, washed and cleaned and into new clothes, and arrive at his girlfriend's house 20 minutes later. Physically impossible. It simply cannot be done. And of course, as we've told you, everyone said in the house, and he sort of suggests that the girlfriend was never cross-examined. That's totally incorrect. Aaron's girlfriend, her mum, her dad, a neighbour, and the girlfriend's friend all came to court, said Aaron came into the house as normal, cheeky chap himself, dressed, clean shaved, washed. So there's no issue with that. So the first part of this whole scenario surrounding Aaron's girlfriend is a complete and total lie. Now, obviously we know now Aaron went into the house at just after 11 p.m. So that's fine, 11 p.m. So Aaron's friend then, James Flynn, collected Aaron, and you can see here, along the bottom here, from the house, the girlfriend's house, the green and red house, Aaron and James Flynn at around 2:30 a.m. drive directly back to James Flynn's home. Now the two circular lanes you can see on the map here, the blue arch, the purple arch is the outer cordon from Lordship Credit Union where the murder robbery had taken place 6 hours earlier. The red lane is the inner cordon that was sealed by Garda Síochána immediately after the murder robbery. So we have to believe that Aaron and James Flynn drove directly back to the outer cordon, moved the cones themselves at Ballymascannon roundabout, and drove directly up to Garda Síochána at the inner cordon. So these two men, allegedly involved in the murder robbery, supposedly drove straight back into the middle of where the murder was after taking place. But we now know James Flynn was not, or had nothing to do with anything at the scene of the murder robbery at Lordship Credit Union. He could not have been there because his vehicle is seen on CCTV footage in the square on Crossmaglen, as was identified by Garda James Carlin. And I will say again, he made several pathetic attempts when given evidence to say that the CCTV footage was poor, and he sort of stumbled over his words, but he identified, and it is James Flynn's car in the square at the time of the Mother robbery. So that's another big hole in the whole storyboard and narrative. Now, this will bring us back now, so we move to the next morning. So obviously, Aaron and James Flynn leave the Green Arrow there, James Flynn's home, and they're heading towards Dundalk, and just at the outer cordon, they're actually stopped by an Garda Síochána, and Sergeant John Maroney speaks to Aaron. Now, Aaron tells lies to Sergeant John Maroney. Sergeant John Maroney asked Aaron where he was. Aaron said he was in his girlfriend's house. And very briefly, Aaron was not going to tell Sergeant John Maroney, I was loading a lorry with cubes of diesel waste. Aaron then, when Aaron left the checkpoint and went to his girlfriend's house, he asked his girlfriend, he just said, if anyone asks, I was here from 7 p.m. So, obviously, then the girlfriend was questioned. She did say Aaron was in the house, but as soon as, and this was clarified very clearly in court and in cross-examination, in examination in chief and in cross-examination, Aaron's girlfriend explained very clearly that as soon as this escalated into the crime at Lordship Credit Union, Aaron said to the girlfriend, please go into the PSNI and explain the full truth. And that is exactly what happened. So let's have a look at the theory behind the preparation of a false alibi, shall we say, if that had to be the case. And to that end, I want to just bring you to a little clip from a primetime programme created by Barry Cummins, an investigative journalist. So I'm just going to play you this little clip now, and where he details some of the text messages, and then we'll have a look at the scenario surrounding that. So here we go, that's the clip now.
The murder trial heard how in the hours before the ambush at Lordship, Aaron Brady was sowing the seeds of a false alibi, sending a series of texts to his girl to make her believe he would be off the radar because of other criminality, diesel laundering. A few things to do later on, he said in one text. I have work at 8 till about 10:30, he said in another. Another text retrieved by Garda experts showed Brady being more blatant with his lies. Just have to load the lorry, but it will only take an hour or two. Ominously, he continued, this phone is gonna go dead.
So that's Mr. Barry Cummins, investigative journalist, in his very best dramatic voice. So Aaron's sending text messages to his girlfriend. I have a few things to do later on. I have work at 8 till about 10:30. So he's given her an idea. Aaron's given his girlfriend an idea what he's doing that evening. And it's actually in some of Mr. Big Stone's later questions, but it is relevant here. There is provenance to the lorry that Aaron was loading. It left Dublin at a certain time, it arrived in Monaghan to be offloaded, and then it was driven from there, where it was offloaded, to the yard where Aaron was loading the diesel. And that 8 o'clock timeline is approximately right. Dublin, Monaghan, back to the diesel yard. So the lorry's arriving around 7:30. So that is 100% accurate, and it falls in exactly to what Aaron was doing that evening on Friday the 25th of January 2013. He goes on then with 2 more messages. Just have to load the lorry, but it'll only take an hour or 2. This phone is going to go dead. So again, in his very best dramatic voice, and that Aaron was setting up some sort of an alibi. And this is vital. This is vital that Cummins says this here, and indeed Mr. Big Stones, you're alluding to it here, that there's some sort of collusion between Aaron and his girlfriend to perpetrate and set up an alibi. Okay? How would that be possible? Because Aaron, when he got back to his girlfriend's house, there were 7 people there. His girlfriend's parents, sister, brother-in-law, friend, and friend's father and neighbour. So there could have been no setup for that to carry any weight. We would have to suggest that all those other 7 people were going to be acceptable to Aaron's alibi. And that was never going, it just simply wouldn't happen. So the setup of an alibi is absolutely false. That narrative is impossible. Once again, it is totally and physically impossible for there have to been any collusion to have been an alibi set up between Aaron and his girlfriend. Now, if his girlfriend had been in a separate place on her own, in a different premises, in a different home, you could definitely put that synopsis forward. But because this young girl was at home with her entire family, the fact that there was some sort of collusion to create an alibi is absolute nonsense. Because nobody in their right mind would give a false alibi in such a serious crime and not expect on Garda Síochána to ask everyone to verify where they were and who they were with. So it's it is as simple as that. So the whole story in and around the alibi carries absolutely no weight. So once again, the times are impossible from the burn site to the girlfriend's house, washed, showered, cleaned. Totally physically impossible. Indeed, I'll reiterate this again, and it's something we've covered numerous times on with Aaron's videos, with the campaign videos. Excuse me. Where you see the CCTV sign there, on Garda Síochána, Garda Kenna, Senior Investigating Officer Mark Phillips, Brendan Graham, Lorcan Steen brought a second witness into court in both trials, in Aaron's trial and indeed with James Flynn and Brendan Traynor. And that gentleman told us that he passed that point to school with the CCTV footage at 10:30 p.m. So at 10:30 p.m. this gentleman met vehicles going towards the burn site. At 10:30. So obviously Kenna, Phillips, Graham, Steen, if they were honest and trustworthy in the information they were putting forward, they are suggesting that the 2 vehicles that gentleman met had something to do with the Northern robbery or indeed the burning of the vehicle. So let's look at that time. So 10:30, you have another 4 or 5 minutes at least at the burn site. So that's bringing us up to 10:35, heading towards 10:40. So the vehicle's only on fire at 10:40, and yet that 13.5 miles has to be travelled. Aaron has to get in, shaved, showered, washed, clothes changed, and back to his girlfriend's house for 11 p.m. Physically impossible. And it shows quite categorically that the whole story put forward by the prosecution is a whole lot of higgledy-piggledy bits, and if you sort of paste it together and brush over it and are allowed to do so, and if you are allowed to do so, you can very easily create a false narrative, as is the case. So once again, Aaron told lies at the roundabout. That is a fact to Sergeant John Maroney. Aaron's girlfriend told lies on the request of Aaron. And once this case had escalated to the Northern robbery at Lordship Credit Union, Aaron's girlfriend immediately retracted what she had said and Aaron had told her, and she confirmed this in court. Aaron said, go straight back in, just tell the truth. And then, Mr. Big Stones, on top of this, the young girl said she knew, when she gave her statement, she said she was aware that the boys were working in this yard, something to do with laundering fuel. Aaron told on Garda Síochána, Mark Phillips, Senior Investigating Officer Mark Phillips, and Senior Detective Jim McGovern. Aaron told them in his statement, this is where I was. I was in this yard. The same as my text messages to my girlfriend said, that is exactly where I was. And Mr. Big Stone, the very first question, how on earth would Garda Síochána not have gone to and investigate and search that yard? Why did Garda Síochána not tell the PSNI that there was illegal fuel laundering going on in that yard? Why did Garda Síochána not go to that yard? If Aaron and his friends had anything to do with the modern robbery at Lordship Credit Union, there could have been a plethora of evidence. Shotgun cartridges, shotgun, footprints, vehicles, paraphernalia from the documents and items that were stolen from the credit union workers. There could have been any amount of links to the modern robbery at Lordship Credit Union if Aaron and his friends had anything to do. But we know now they hadn't. Two of those men that have been named to you, Mr. Big Stones, and you have been fed this story, as has the Irish people, that the other two men that were taken to court were at Lordship Credit Union. Both of those men have been acquitted, and acquitted on very strong evidence. The phone evidence of Mr. Traynor, his IP address is active, and the PSNI called to his house. And James Flynn, his car's driving around the square and cross Glen, as was detailed by Garda James Carlin. And that report from Garda James Carlin was very much hidden in a maze of evidence that was thrown at Aaron's defence team. So that's the first part of the question. It's as simple as that. That's how Aaron's girlfriend was brought into it. The correlation of the times, and the facts are, very quickly, we say it is impossible, physically impossible, for the times to be correct, as is the case in other parts of Aaron's evidence. So the times are physically wrong, and the assertion by you, Mr. Stones, and by Mr. Cummins, we have shown quite clearly, makes absolutely no sense. Trying to generate a false alibi where you have 7 or 8 other witnesses to know that to be incorrect would be the height of, well, it just wouldn't happen. And because Aaron and James Flynn spent the night in James Flynn's house, if the necessity was there to create a false alibi, my God, surely a better story would have been told than I was in my girlfriend's house, and that, oh dear, there's 7 other people in my girlfriend's house. And Aaron would have known that because Aaron interacted with all the 7 people the night before. So when Aaron stopped at the roundabout with Sergeant John Maroney, and Sergeant John Maroney, along with Pat Murray, is the 2 men that went down the wrong rabbit hole and made a complete mess of this case from day one. Went down the wrong rabbit hole and lost all track of all the relevant evidence. So there we have it. Mr. Big Stones, that's number 1. We will go through the other 7 parts. I hope that gives you some clarity on that. If there's some other part of that you don't understand, it would be good if you respond, and then we can deal with it before we move on to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. And we'll cover all those points. Thank you so much for raising this, Mr. Big Stones. It's vitally important that we get into the detail of the narrative created, that we say is a false narrative, and a number of Garda Síochána purged themselves about this information, and the Senior Prosecution Counsel Brendan Graham knew it was false, Lorcan Steen Junior Counsel knew it was false, and still they pushed forward to create a totally unsafe conviction. and framing of her son Aaron. So we'll see you again next video for point number 2 in your essay, Mr. Big Stones. Thank you.